From Sleepy Hollow, New York, to a regulator in North Carolina, to an elderly pioneer settler in Kentucky. That's pretty cool, huh?
That is pretty cool. And he's my sixth great-grandfather.
Sixth great.
Hercules Conkwright.
Hercules Conkwright. Great. Having six greats.
That's a lot of greats,
cool.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, this is Russ from Family Tree Nuts, and we are in Clark County, Kentucky, just up from Fort Boonesboro, and we're in front of what's called the Old Providence Church, or the Old Stone Church, built in 1790 back there. And that's going to be relevant to the story here in a minute, but I'm with a special guest here. You want to tell them who you are?
I'm Sue Baber-Castle, and I do my family genealogy.
Awesome. That's pretty cool. So the fellow we're talking about, you said, was your sixth great-grandfather.
That's correct.
Walter Conkwright, right?
Not Walter, but actually his cousin.
He's related to him,
descended from the same Conkwrights from New York. Cool. That's right.
And what was his name again?
Hercules Conkwright.
You can't do Hercules without a flex.
Hercules.
So, Hercules Conkwright.
That's right.
When was he born?
He was born in 1727 in Tarrytown, New York. He was of Dutch descent.
Okay.
And he would have been, his family would have been part of the original Dutch settlers that came into New York.
That's cool.
When it was still New Amsterdam.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that New York was originally a Dutch colony.
That's correct.
And for what, 40 years or so, from I think 1622 to 1664, was a Dutch colony. So many of the original settlers are Dutch. So that means that your family on that line has been here for close to 400
years.
And that's really cool.
Yes.
Now, Tarrytown's known for something else too, isn't it?
It is. It's Washington Irving wrote about the legend of Sleepy Hollow in 1820, and that's where he was from, and sometimes gets called Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman.
That's right.
So that's your cousin, right?
I'm going to have to research that.
But of course, a short time after, he lived in New York, but he eventually moved to North Carolina, I think it was.
He did. We find him in Anson County, North Carolina, and in about 1768, he is there, and we find him as a regulator. And they would have been opposing Governor Tryon and his British Army at the time.
That's really cool. A lot of people don't know about the Regulator War, but what that was 1765 until 1771. Some people say it's a precursor to the Revolutionary War, but the colonists were rebelling. There was riots, there was mobs, there was public destruction. They drug people out of the courthouse. There was deaths. But basically, the colonists actually rose up arms, but they weren't trying to overthrow the government yet. They were just trying to change the government.
That's right.
So that means Hercules, your sixth great-grandfather, was a pre-patriot.
That's right. One of the earliest pre-patriots.
Was he just rebellious?
Maybe both. Maybe both. Trying to still effect change like we try to today, too.
Right. Let's go with pre-patriot. There you go.
I like
That's
that.
a better term.
I like that better than rowdy. That's right.
So we find him a little bit later on. I think it was at 1781. He was on somebody's will.
He was. His daughter Eleanor's father-in-law, Henry Goldman, he would have been a witness as to his will, and that was still in North Carolina.
Really cool.
Yeah.
1781. So you know he was still there. Correct. And then I think you said he sold some land.
He did. He sold land in about 1786, so we can still place him there in North Carolina at the time. But then by 1788, we find him in Fayette County, Kentucky. At the time it wasn't Kentucky, but it still would have been the Fayette County area.
Fayette County, Virginia, technically.
Exactly, which would have been, he was on the tax rolls.
Awesome.
There,
yeah, because we weren't a state until 1792 here in Kentucky.
Correct.
So
that's correct. But then we find him on the tax rolls in 1793 in Clark County, because Clark County was formed at the same time the state was.
Awesome.
And I believe he was in the same place, never moved.
County lines.
County lines just changed around him.
That's neat. So between 1786 1788, he moves to Kentucky. That makes him in his mid-60s, I guess.
That's right. That's right. That's a pretty good move for somebody in their mid-60s.
It is. It really is.
Yes.
I think they said usually it took him on average about 40 days to get here of a walk. He might have been on a horse, made it in about 10 days or so. But even still, that's a heck of a move in your 60s, I think. So we find that his wife, Dolly, was actually brought in as a member to this church right here, right?
That's right. About 1801, we find that Dolly, her name was Dorothy, they called her Dolly, would have been received by experience here at the Old Stone Church, which means she would have carried a letter with her from her previous church showing her experience within the church.
Awesome. That's 1801. And like I say, this church right here was built in 1790. This church is 230 years old. And there's not very many things in Kentucky that you can touch and see then. But the congregation was started in 1785. And it's also been called the the Howard's Creek Church.
Howard's Creek Church,
you know,
it went by several names.
Old Providence Church, Old
Right.
Stone Church, and there's been some famous people here. I know Billy Bush attended here, and
that's
who else?
right, and his family, and the Boone family,
Who?
which Boone, which would have included Daniel.
Yeah.
Don't think he was a member, but he would have been here because Squire Boone, his
Sure.
brother, was a member here. Yes,
They had some kids baptized and things.
that's right.
And when this church was built, Daniel was living in Boone Station, which, as a crow flies, just a few miles. But by I think 1795, he had moved to Nicholas County, and then by 1801, when your ancestors were here, he was already in Missouri.
That's correct.
So he probably didn't know him, but he probably knew the Boone family.
Exactly.
So that's
exactly.
pretty neat.
That is pretty neat.
So that's really neat. That's why we're here at this backdrop here. So, when did he die?
He died in 1809, and he is buried on his son's land, John Conkwright. And we have a picture of that land that was taken in 1918.
Okay.
It shows John's house, a big
We got a
house.
picture we're showing you there.
And then there is, off the side of the picture, documentation shows his cabin, Hercules and Dolly's cabin, would have still been standing in 1918. And and a stone wall surrounds the cemetery where they are all buried.
That's really cool, but we haven't been able to locate a grave, you know. But 1809, we may not be able to do that.
I don't. Exactly. We might locate it, but I don't think there's a readable stone if we do find it.
Pretty cool. Awesome. Yeah. So what's it like to be able to come here to the land where your 6 great-grandparents went to church right over here? What's it like to be here?
It's like being home. It's surreal in the fact to know that they worshiped here,
sure,
and that it still is a continuous church, that it never shut its doors as a church. So
Sundays.
It's considered the oldest continuous church in Kentucky.
That's pretty cool, and you're kind of part of that. Maybe you ought to attend a service sometime, you know. And
that would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be
absolutely
really cool. So,
yes.
So is there anything else you'd like to say while we're here?
I just think it's important to pass on these stories to your family. You never know who you might find when you go digging, and the families need to know who they descend from.
Absolutely.
Your history is very important.
And you you video documented it here, right here in this video.
Absolutely, which is amazing.
Awesome. So here we are in front of Old Providence Church, built in 1790. The church attended by Sue's 6th great-grandfather, Hercules Conkwright, who was born in Sleepy Hollow, New York, became a regulator in North Carolina, and was an elderly pioneer settler. I think that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
And so, hey, remember, family tree nuts. Let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree.